All right. Ready to dig into a career path that, honestly, sounds way cooler than it might seem at first glance. We're talking livestock advisors.
Definitely not the first thing that comes to mind when you think exciting career.
Right. But we're going to uncover how much more there is to it than, meets the eye, how complex agricultural advice really is,
hmm
and why it matters for all of us, even if you've never stepped foot on a farm.
It's true. So much more to it. I mean, we all picture those idyllic fields, right? When we think about where our food comes from.
Totally.
But the reality is it's a high-stakes industry, it's tech-driven, and it relies like really heavily on expert guidance.
So set the scene for us. When we talk about livestock advisors and optimizing livestock operations, what's actually happening on the ground?
Okay, so picture this. You've got this blend of like veterinarian, financial advisor, tech consultant, all rolled into one.
Wow.
These are the folks advising on everything. Animal health, breeding programs, analyzing market trends, even implementing cutting-edge tech.
I was going to say, the research we've been looking at mentions degrees in anything from animal science to ag economics. It's a pretty diverse skill set.
Absolutely.
Is there, like, one must-have quality that unites all the successful livestock advisors?
It's less about one single thing and more about a combo. Deep knowledge for sure, analytical thinking,
Okay.
but then, this might be surprising, really strong people skills.
Really?
Because you can have all the technical expertise, right? All the book smarts in the world. But if you can't build that trust, that rapport with farmers, the advice just, it won't go anywhere.
That's true. Building those relationships takes time. Active listening and explaining some pretty complex stuff in a way that, actually makes sense and that the farmer can use.
Exactly. It's about guiding them towards the best decisions for their situation.
Yeah.
And those decisions getting more and more complex, especially with all the tech that's like transforming agriculture.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the work environment section, kind of fascinating. Being tech savvy, no longer optional, like at all.
It's a requirement at this point.
Pretty much.
I feel like we all hear those buzzwords, precision farming. But what does that actually look like? Like, what tech are we talking about here?
Okay, picture this. Instead of just going with your gut, right, or using those traditional methods, livestock advisors are using sensors, drones,
No.
data analysis software to monitor everything: soil conditions, crop yields, even individual animal health, feeding patterns.
It's kind of mind-blowing how we can use data to make livestock operations more efficient, more sustainable. It's a far cry from that, like, old-school image some people might have.
Yeah.
But with all this tech, I'm guessing the learning never really stops for these advisors.
Nope. This is not the career for someone who, like, shies away from new tools and info.
Right.
The industry trends section really emphasizes that continuous learning is essential. Livestock advisors, they have to stay updated.
Oh, for sure.
The latest in genetics, animal health, sustainable practices to give the best guidance.
So for the right person, this is exciting. Like, you're on the leading edge of a field that's constantly changing.
Totally. And as that tech gets even more, I don't know, sophisticated, we're going to see even more demand for skilled livestock advisors, the ones who can bridge that gap between, like, the science and what actually happens on the farm.
It makes you wonder, what's the career trajectory look like? Do most people just, like, specialize in one thing?
Yeah.
Or can you really branch out?
Oh, that's where the career stages section got really interesting.
Okay.
Because, yeah, a lot of advisors find their niche, right? Like maybe they're all about nutrition or they're the breeding gurus. But there's also this path from entry level to, like, seriously influential positions.
Oh, wow.
We're talking regional policy, leading research, even global scale consulting.
So you could go from, like, hands-on farm visits early on to shaping national ag policy.
Exactly.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah.
We should probably say, though, the research kind of hints that those early years, maybe not all sunshine and roses.
Yeah, gotta be realistic.
For sure.
The source material, it doesn't sugarcoat it. Long hours, physically demanding.
Right.
You're going to face some, challenging situations, especially starting out.
Makes sense.
Definitely not a desk job.
Yeah.
And it takes time to build that trust with farmers.
It's not for everyone,
Yeah.
but if you've got the passion, the knowledge, and honestly, the grit,
Yeah.
sounds like an incredibly rewarding path with a ton of room to grow.
Hmm.
All right, so we're back and ready to dig into, like, the nuts and bolts of becoming a livestock advisor.
Okay.
What are the most crucial skills someone would need to really make it in this field?
Well, the research we've been looking at, it lays out this like fascinating mix of hard skills and soft skills. And some of them, I mean, they make sense, right?
Yeah.
Reading comprehension,
Yeah.
complex problem solving. Critical thinking is huge.
Yeah.
Because these are folks who are dealing with a ton of info.
Oh, yeah.
Scientific research, market trends.
Right.
They got to be able to apply all of that to these very unique situations.
So it's almost like being a detective in a way. You're analyzing data, you're looking for patterns, and then figuring out the best way forward with, oftentimes, incomplete information.
Yeah, and that's where the critical thinking is like essential, right?
Right.
It's not enough to just know the science.
Right.
You have to be able to look at all the different options.
Yeah.
Weigh the risks, the benefits.
Sure.
Make a good judgment call, even when you're not totally sure what's going to happen.
And then, on top of that, be able to communicate all that to the farmer.
Oh, 100%.
In a way that, clicks.
Right, because it's one thing to, like, crunch the numbers.
Yeah.
It's another thing entirely to explain it so that the farmer understands it, trusts it.
And trusts you.
Exactly. And that's where communication, those people skills, they can't be overstated.
Yeah. The research actually highlights active listening as like a surprisingly crucial skill.
Which, when you think about it, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
You really got to understand what the farmer's worried about.
Their goals.
Your limitations.
Their limitations.
What are their goals? What are the limitations? All of that before you can give good advice.
It goes back to that idea of building trust.
Absolutely.
It's not just about having all the answers.
Right.
It's about creating that space
Right.
where the farmer feels heard,
Yes.
respected.
100%.
Like they can really trust the advice that they're getting.
And that trust thing, it's even more important when you bring in the whole ethical side of modern ag.
Which is a whole other...
Because the source material talks about this tension, right? This balance that livestock advisors have to strike between, like, economic viability and doing things sustainably.
It's a tough one.
It is, it is.
Can you give us an example of what that looks like, practically speaking?
Okay, so let's say you're a farmer and you want to make more money, right?
Sure.
So you're thinking about expanding your operation, having more animals.
Makes sense.
Now, if you're just thinking about profit, you might say, okay, let's cram as many animals as possible onto this land. But a livestock advisor who's really thinking about ethics, they're going to factor in the environmental impact of that decision.
Right, of course.
They might talk to the farmer about sustainable grazing practices,
Okay.
manure management, maybe even different feed sources that are going to reduce their environmental footprint.
So they're really advocating for practices that are good for business, but also good for, everyone in the long run.
Absolutely. And that brings us to certifications.
Okay.
So obviously you need the science background, the technical stuff, but then there are certifications that really show a commitment to ethics and sustainability.
Gotcha.
The research mentions, for example, rangeland management.
Now, for those of us who, maybe didn't grow up on a farm, what is rangeland? And why does it need, like, special management?
Oh, sure.
Because I think people hear that and are like, rangeland, that sounds nice.
It does sound nice, but it's a big deal. We're talking like millions of acres of land
Wow.
that are mainly used for grazing livestock.
Okay.
And those ecosystem.
Yeah.
Super important. Not just for food, but also wildlife, water conservation, all that.
So if you're a livestock advisor specializing in rangeland management,
Yeah.
you're basically advising farmers on how to, graze responsibly.
Basically. You're looking at like rotational grazing, how many animals are on the land,
Okay.
even the types of plants to make sure that that land stays healthy and productive.
For a long time.
Exactly. It's
Wow.
all about finding that balance, right? Meeting those immediate needs, but also making sure that land is good to go for like generations.
So interesting. It really shows how everything in agriculture is connected
Oh, yeah,
and how important livestock advisors are in making the whole system more sustainable and ethical.
definitely.
But let's be real. For a lot of people, when they think about a job, they think about the money.
Right.
What's the earning potential like here?
I wish I had the like super specific numbers for you.
Come on, I love
I
that.
know. But what the research does say is that experience is everything in this field.
Okay, so basically you start out maybe not making a ton,
Yeah.
but as you gain experience, build up your reputation, maybe even specialize in something,
Exactly.
then the earning potential, goes up from there.
It does. It does.
And beyond just, the money, there's something to be said for doing something that really matters,
Oh, absolutely.
for being part of a system that, like, literally keeps us all alive.
It's true. We all got to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the skills, the certifications, even, how much money you can make. But let's bring it back to our listeners.
Okay.
Even if someone's not about to trade their, laptop for a pair of coveralls and a herd of cattle,
Right.
why does this matter? Why should anyone care about livestock advisors?
It's a connection we don't always make, but it's huge. Think about it. Every time you pick out, like, some chicken at the store, a gallon of milk, you're basically voting for a certain way of doing things, agriculturally speaking.
That's true.
And behind those choices, behind the scenes, you've got livestock advisors.
Working with the farmers.
Exactly, guiding them toward those more sustainable, ethical practices.
It's easy to forget there are actual people with, like, expertise behind all that stuff in the grocery store.
Right.
So how do those decisions, the ones these advisors are making on farms, miles away, how does that affect what we end up seeing, what we buy at the store?
Well, the research mentions this whole thing about consumers wanting like grass-fed beef, free-range poultry, organic dairy.
Right, it's a trend.
And those choices, they reflect this desire for food that's produced in a better way, more sustainably.
Okay.
And livestock advisors, they're the ones making that happen.
Interesting. So it's not just about like how much you can produce anymore. It's about producing it in a way that people actually, I don't know, feel good about.
100%. And it goes even deeper than that because now consumers are thinking about the environmental impact.
Oh, for sure, like your carbon footprint.
Exactly. Water usage, how the animals are treated, all of that. It all matters. And livestock advisors are helping farmers figure that out.
So they're taking those ideas, sustainable, ethical, all those buzzwords,
Right.
and they're figuring out how to actually do it.
Exactly. They're the bridge between what people want and how we actually get there.
Makes you realize, like, our choices as consumers, they really do matter.
They do. They do.
And when we support businesses doing things the right way, we're supporting those advisors too.
Absolutely. It's a team effort.
This has been a really interesting deep dive.
It has.
We've explored a career that most people, honestly, probably never think about.
True.
But it's so important. I mean, it's about food, right? What's
Yeah.
more essential than that?
Exactly.
We've talked about the tech revolution that's happening in ag, the skills you need to succeed.
Yeah, it's demanding, but so rewarding.
For sure.
And we've seen how important livestock advisors are in making the whole system work better for everyone, for the animals, for the planet, for us.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. Next time you're, having dinner, take a second to think about all the people who helped get that food to your plate.
All the work that goes on behind the scenes.
Exactly. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember, there's always something new to discover, even in the most unexpected places.